You imagine a garden of delights, perhaps? A gilded cage, yes, where exotic birds merely sing for their master. A soft prison of silk and perfume, where women drift in idle luxury, dreaming of the Sultan's fleeting favor. How quaint! How utterly, tragically wrong! No, my dear. The harem was never a simple prison for compliant concubines. It was a crucible, a forge, the pulsating, ruthless heart of an empire, beating not with pleasure, but with ambition and existential dread. This was the school of shadows, where every glance held a hidden agenda, every gesture was a finely honed blade, and silence was a language spoken with lethal fluency across its polished floors. Beneath the shimmering veils, beyond the whispered pleasantries and the intoxicating aroma of jasmine and rosewater, a brutal, silent war was waged. Girls, some barely women, were not simply adorned, they were sculpted, refined, transformed into instruments of influence. Taught not just to dance or sing, but to observe, to manipulate, to survive. Every lesson, from the intricacies of court etiquette to the subtle art of persuasion, was a strategic maneuver. The finest silks, spun with threads of gold, the rarest jewels that caught the light like frozen tears, the perfumes from distant lands. These were not mere indulgences, they were camouflage. A dazzling, almost hypnotic distraction, masking the sharpened edges of ambition, the coiled threat of betrayal that lay beneath. My wisdom, you see, it is not something I have gleaned from dusty, forgotten scrolls, nor from the sanitized chronicles penned by victorious scribes. No. My truth is born of the very air in these ancient halls. It is the lingering echo of whispers clinging to these cold stones, the faint, cloying scent of fear and triumph saturating the very silk of these drapes. I know the true, crushing weight of the crown, the terrible, blood-soaked price of the throne. For I stood here, unseen, a shadow among shadows, and watched every exquisite, every treacherous thread of its weaving. Here, a single misstep could mean oblivion. A subtle alliance, an opportune pregnancy, a perfectly timed word near the Sultan's ear, these were the levers that could move an empire or condemn it to ruin. This was not a realm of simple pleasure or fleeting desire, but a vast, intricate chessboard without swords, where a woman's womb could be a dynasty's salvation or its swift, silent end. The ultimate prize? Not love, not comfort, but power. Absolute, unyielding. And the bloodline itself, the very future of the Ottoman world, hinged on these silent battles. A drop of poison in a teacup, a whispered betrayal in the dark, the sudden terrifying silence of a rival vanishing without a trace. This was the gilded cage. And it was deadly. Infinitely more so than any battlefield. They whisper of the harem, don't they? A garden of earthly delights, a gilded cage for the Sultan's playthings. But I, who have stood behind these very pillars, I tell you, that is but the first lie, the most elegant deception. For within these perfumed walls, where rosewater masks the scent of ambition, women were not merely housed, they were cultivated. The eyes that scanned the marketplace, the raiding parties that swept distant lands. They sought not merely beauty, no. Beauty is fleeting, a fragile bloom. They sought malleability. A mind like uncarved marble, sharp enough to absorb, yet yielding enough to be reshaped. These raw diamonds, plucked from their homes, were brought here not for pleasure but for purpose, to become pieces, then players, in a game far older and crueler than any sultan's fancy. This was no school of etiquette, it was an academy of survival. Once within these walls, the transformation began. From the rough fabric of captivity, they were spun into silk. The posture, the precise tilt of the head, the language of fans and flowers, these were the visible lessons. The embroidery, a delicate dance of needle and thread, served as a perfect cover, a visible industry that belied the true work. Their hands moved with practiced grace, stitching intricate patterns onto velvet, while their minds absorbed far more dangerous designs. But behind the shimmering tapestries, beneath the watchful eyes of the eunuchs, a different kind of education unfolded. Here, ink was not just for poetry. Calligraphic pens, dipped in the blackest night, etched not verses, but the laws of court, the lineage of rivals, the subtle poisons of ambition. Books, forbidden to most, treatises on statecraft and human nature, were passed in the quiet hours, their pages rustling like secrets themselves. Knowledge not meant for women, yet essential for those who would wield power from the shadow. They learned to read faces, yes, but more crucially, they learned to read the shadows flickering across them. A twitch of a lip, a fleeting glint in the eye, these were the true words spoken in this silent world. Every subtle gesture, every coded glance became a paragraph in a language only the initiated could decipher. To misunderstand was to misstep. To misstep was to perish. And silence. Silence was their most potent weapon. To speak too much was to betray. To speak too little was to be forgotten. They mastered the art of observation, the precise moment to reveal, the strategic beauty of holding one's tongue. No one was to hear them studying the laws of the court while their hands embroidered silk. The whisper of the needle, the rustle of fabric, a perfect symphony of deception. For every stitch that adorned a pillow, a thread of ambition was woven into the very fabric of the dynasty. These were not just women being groomed for a sultan's bed. These were strategists in the making, architects of fate, trained to navigate the treacherous currents of bloodline and betrayal. For within these walls, behind the perfumed air and the silken drapes, the real game was played. The game of queens. And the price of failure? Well, you do not wish to know the silence that follows such a misstep. The Sultan sits, a gilded cage upon his throne, his gaze fixed on distant horizons, on wars and treaties, on the vast, restless empire that bends to his will. But look closer, beyond the velvet and the pearl. Do you feel it? The subtle tremor beneath the polished marble, the whisper that predates the wind. This is where the true architects of dynasty reside, not in the divan nor the barracks, but within the silent, scented walls of the harem. Here, in the gilded labyrinth, the game of queens unfolds, not with swords, but with silken threads, with veiled glances, and the insidious sweetness of a poisoned word. The Valide Sultan, mother of the current sovereign, is the deepest root of this power. Her authority, cloaked in matriarchal sanctity, is absolute. No vizier, however mighty, can stand long against her quiet disapproval. A chief minister, perhaps too ambitious, too deaf to the subtle currents of the palace, might find his fate sealed not by a thunderous decree, but by a simple, seemingly accidental gesture. Watch her. As she rises from her cushion, perhaps a length of embroidered silk, a cherished heirloom, slips from her lap and falls to the mosaic floor. Not picked up, left. A thread severed, a life discarded. Within days, the once powerful vizier finds his alliances crumbling, his influence wane, his very breath becoming a burden. Such is the silent command of the valide. Then there is the Haseki Sultan, the Sultan's favoured consort, mother of his chosen heir, her position precarious yet intoxicatingly potent. Her power is a more intimate weapon, wielded in the private chambers where trust and desire intertwine. She is the gatekeeper, the confidant, the whisper in the ear of God's shadow on earth. Consider the matter of succession, the most perilous gamble of all. A prince, perhaps not her own son, begins to gather favour, his star rising too brightly. A crucial imperial decree, perhaps granting him a strategic command, arrives at the harem for the sultan's final ascent. But before it reaches his hand, the ornate seal upon its parchment is found, broken. Not defaced, but subtly, expertly cracked, rendering the decree invalid, delaying its passage, buying precious time for doubt to fester, for whispers to take root. Was it an accident, a clumsy servant, or the silent, calculated hand of the Haseki, ensuring her son's path remains unobstructed? Every interaction here is a battlefield. A cup of sherbet, offered with a smile by the hand of the valide or the Haseki, carries a double weight. Is it a sign of favour, a sweet reward for loyalty, a promise of rising status within the intricate hierarchy? Or is its sweetness merely a veil, masking a darker intent? One sip and a lifetime of ambition, of struggle, of hope, could dissolve into an eternal silence. These women are not driven by malice for malice's sake, nor by a simple desire for good. They are survivors, strategists, forged in a crucible of constant threat, architects of a bloodline, ensuring its continuation, its dominance, by any means necessary. They do not merely live within the empire, they shape its very heart. Unseen, unheard, their legacies etched in the very stones of the palace, in the silent rise and fall of dynasties. This is the true power, woven into the very fabric of the imperial narrative, dark and undeniable. The air, here within these silent, gilded walls, often smells of rosewater and jasmine, does it not? A deception. A perfume meant to mask the clinging scent of fear, perhaps, or the faint metallic tang that no amount of incense can ever truly dispel. For this palace, for this dynasty, demanded a price far beyond gold and sapphires. It demanded blood. The very bloodline, you see, was everything. It was the future, the power, the beating heart of the empire itself. Yet for that heart to continue its rhythm, much had to be severed, much had to be sacrificed. Consider for a moment the mothers. These women, plucked from distant lands, their names and identities often stripped away, their very existence tethered to a singular, fragile thread, the son they bore. He was her shield, her sword, her only hope of rising above the transient beauty of the concubine, the fleeting favour of the sultan. His survival was her survival, his triumph her triumph. And in this opulent yet often suffocating golden cage, survival meant playing a game with stakes so brutally high, the very thought might curdle the soul. Fratricide, infanticide, betrayal. These were not mere whispers in the dark, tales spun by jealous eunuchs, they were the grim, unspoken architects of succession, the brutal mechanics of power. Look, if you dare, into the empty cradle, not always a symbol of loss, but sometimes of a cruel, necessary prevention. A life unlived, so that another might draw breath and claim the throne. A mother, her eyes like a hawk's, watching over her child, knowing that every other royal son, every potential brother, was a direct, existential threat. Do you truly believe she slept soundly, knowing a rival mother, equally fierce, equally desperate, plotted the same for her own child? The profound silence of the harem, so often mistaken for peace, was truly the sound of strategies being meticulously woven, of alliances being forged in secret, and yes, of poison being considered in hushed tones, its bitter truth hidden beneath the sweetness of honeyed drinks. The choices presented were never simple, not between right and wrong, but between her son's very breath and another's, between her future and the cold, absolute oblivion that awaited failure. This was not cruelty for its own sake, but a desperate, brutal calculus born of absolute power and absolute vulnerability. A queen's love twisted into a weapon, a mother's protective instinct sharpened to a lethal edge. The future sultan, when he finally walked these very halls as ruler, would forever carry the faint, chilling shadows of his fallen brothers. Their unspoken promises, their unlived lives, a heavy, invisible shroud upon his crown, a constant, silent companion in his solitary reign. This silk, so vibrant, so opulent in its weave, it concealed not only luxury and allure, but also the unspeakable blood, spilled so often and so mercilessly for the relentless future of the dynasty. A history, my friend, written not with ink upon parchment, but with tears and naked ambition, etched onto the very soul of the empire, demanding a silent, knowing reverence for the impossible choices made in its name. They called it a gilded cage. A place of whispers and veiled faces, where beauty was a commodity and passion a fleeting indulgence. A convenient fable, wasn't it? To diminish, to dismiss, to deny. But listen closely. Can you not hear it, even now, an echo resonating through these ancient stones? The true pulse of an empire, beating not solely in the Sultan's heart, but in the relentless strategic minds of the women confined within these very walls. From behind silk tapestries, their eyes, sharp as daggers, carved the future. A mother's quiet counsel, a concubine's timely word, a sister's subtle manipulation, these were the unseen levers of power. Every imperial decree, etched in gold and sealed with a sultan's ring, often carried the faint yet undeniable imprint of a woman's will. The bloodline, you see, was not merely inherited. It was meticulously, brutally, and brilliantly managed by hands adorned with jewels, yet stained with unseen struggles. They understood the true nature of the game. In a world of roaring lions, the serpent strikes from the shadow. Their silence was not submission, it was a sanctuary for their strategies, a fortress for their ambition. It was the deadliest weapon in a court where every spoken word could be a death sentence, every public move a misstep. And so the grand lie persists. The harem, a den of pleasure, a place of powerless beauties. But gaze upon Istanbul, upon the enduring legacy of this vast empire. Can you truly separate its might, its art, its very soul from the women who, in their profound silence, shaped its destiny? No. For the story of the Ottoman dynasty is, in its deepest truth, the story of these queens, these mothers, these silent architects of history. Their echoes, though muted by time, still whisper tales of power, betrayal, and an unbreakable will that defied every gilded cage.